Welcome to Code Freedom. I'm your host, Eddie Bales. Have you ever felt stuck? Have you ever felt like there's got to be more than life than the reality that you see every day? Tune in weekly, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays as we crack the codes to freedom in every area of your life. Welcome to Code Freedom. I'm your host, Eddie Bales, and this is episode 20. And today we're going to talk about 6 ways to make people like you. And this is so important on our journey to freedom because if we're going to deal with people and be happy, we have to learn how to deal with people, right? And so this is not something that I came up with on my own, by the way. So I want to preface this by saying that this comes from a book I read years ago that I often revisit, and it's been a game changer. It's one of my top 3 books that I normally recommend to some of the new entrepreneurs that I work with, and it's called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And listen, this book was published in 1936. That's almost 100 years ago. And we're still talking about the concepts in this book today because it's still relevant, right? And so we're talking about how to make people like you. You have to be likable, right? Don't get me wrong. Our job is not to please people per se and go way out of our way, because you'll never please everybody. So let me also preface it by saying that. However, sometimes we could just be a little bit better of a human being to people, right? And so if we kind of understood some of these fundamental philosophies or ways of thinking, then I think it would make life so much easier, and we'll find ourselves attracting so much more success to us because people from all ends of the spectrum want to be around us. They want to, uh, support our dreams, support our passions. They don't mind being in your presence because you are able to handle people, right? And so let's jump right in. So the first one is be genuinely interested in other people, right? And we're going to talk more about this in some of the other ones, but like for instance, you know, be interested in what they have to say, right? Ask them questions. Sometimes it's like we are trying to sometimes we try to overpower conversations, and we want to get all our thoughts across. We want to get what we think across and our opinions. But what about what they think, right? Because the more you give them a platform to talk and to speak and to share their ideas, now they often feel like they were heard. And there's so many other platforms that they're on where they aren't heard. Maybe they aren't heard at work. Hey, maybe they aren't heard at home. But if you give them that opportunity to be heard, you just made a serious friend. So that's number one, is be genuinely interested in other people. The second one is, I think it's easy, but maybe not for everybody, is smile, right? Smile more. When you smile, it's contagious. It costs less muscles to smile than it does to frown. So just smile more, like be a beaming radiant of light. Because here's the deal. When you walk in the room, do you brighten the room or do you dim the room? Are we attracting people to us or are we repelling people from us based on our attitude, based on our mindset, based on the way we operate, hey, based on the way we talk? But sometimes before you even open up your mouth, if your face can almost say it all, right? And so when you smile, you're more inviting, you're more open, and it gives people more of a, okay, let me check this person out because they're smiling, they must be a nice person. Now that's not always the case, but smiling goes a long way, right? So that's number 2. Number 3 is names. Remember people's names. Now this is something that sometimes I struggle with, so but just keep this in mind. Names is the sweetest and most important sound in any language to that person, right? So if you can remember their name, it's gold. And so one way to remember people's names, by the way, is to associate some kind of a meaning with that person's name. So I'm always doing this. Like if if somebody's name is, I don't know, I'm just thinking of a random name. Okay, let's just say David. Well, if I need to remember the person's name is David, who else do I know whose name is David? I got a business partner whose name is David, or David from the Bible. And so now I can, when I see that person, I might see an image of someone else that may help me remember that person's name. Another good idea is to say their name after they say it, just to make sure you're saying it again and hearing it again. It might even be a good idea to write it down if you're able to, but if you can remember people's names, you will have made a serious friend as well. Okay, so that's number two. That's number three. Number four is to be a good listener. And this is another one that I'm often having to work on, because sometimes we are not active listeners. There's a difference between listening and being a active listener, right? Like listening to hear, not to respond, right? Because it's like you're listening to them, but it's like you just can't wait to get to your point, what you want to say, versus giving them the opportunity to speak and to be heard. And like, for instance, what you might do here is, if someone says something, you may say, "Hey, so what I'm hearing is," and then repeat what they just said. That way they feel validated that you heard what they said. You're not just and part of this is not being on our phone. I mean, you know, I see people all the time sitting at the dinner table and everybody's got their phone out, right? Or if someone's talking to you, I know this is especially true for my wife, is that when she's talking, she wants my full attention. And that is something that I struggled with in the beginning, because I thought, hey, if I'm doing something else, I'm still listening, but she wants active listening. And so understanding what people like and how people operate, and especially when you're dealing with spouses and children and family and business partners and things of that nature. When you start understanding people, you understand more about life and how they work and what makes them tick, right? And so, the last episode we talked about influence. Well, here's some key ways to building influence with folks: is understanding how people work, what makes people tick. So, that one, I've gotten a whole lot better though over the years, but it's something that I have to do consciously. So if my wife wants to tell me a story about something that happened, I immediately try to put my phone down and just look dead in the eyes and just pretend that she's the only person in the room, because and that's the thing. I'm from New York, so like I remember being at business events and I'm talking to someone and I'm trying to give them my full attention, but then someone will walk by, or just like movement is happening. And normally, being from New York, I'm looking at everything. I'm watching everything in the room, in case something tries to pop off, right? So that's kind of been my personality a little bit. But I also and I've learned this from some of my mentors. I'm telling you, I got mentors that when you're talking to them, you truly are the only person in the room, and they let you feel that. And so I've often, ever since witnessing them years ago do this, it's been something that I've always admired and strived to do, is to make sure that people feel special when I'm listening to them, because I'm actively listening, not fumbling through paperwork, not looking at my phone, not scrolling, not looking around the room, but eye contact, looking them dead in the eye, maybe repeating some of the things that they said, and just making sure that they know that I heard them. Not I didn't just hear them, I didn't just listen to what they were saying, but I heard them. All right. And then number five is talk in terms of the other person's interest, not just your own, but talk in terms of their interests. Have you ever been in a conversation where it's like two or three people, maybe four people, and the conversation just doesn't interest you. So you kind of see yourself fading away, or maybe you don't say much, right? So, you know, just finding ways to, like, okay, let's just say that same scenario was happening and you notice somebody fading away. Maybe you might ask a question to that person that's fading away to draw them in, to engage in conversation with them. Here's another big phrase I don't want you to forget: be interested, not interesting. Be interested, not interesting. This also kind of flows a little bit with number one. Be genuinely interested in other people. But it also flows with, this one, because sometimes when we're in a conversation with somebody, we want to almost impress them. We want to show them some of our stories and our experiences and what we know and who we are. We want to give them a piece of who we are. But it's really better to get to know them more, let them talk more, because then they will. I heard a phrase, or I heard someone say this before, that they felt like they were so like someone was doing the talking and someone else was doing the listening. And at the end of the conversation, the person that was doing the talking was like, man, I don't know what it is, but I just really like you. And it wasn't that this other person did a whole lot of talking to make themselves likable. The fact is, they just listen very well. And sometimes that's all a person needs, is just an opportunity to share who they are. Because there are a lot of different places where they don't get a chance to do that. So if you give them that platform, if you give them those opportunities, they are going to love you. And then the last one, number 6, is to make the other person feel important and do it sincerely, right? And so, this, we would call this something like edification, maybe, where you celebrate them, and I'm not talking about over embellishing, but how about some compliments? Like, man, those are some bad shoes you got on. Where'd you get those, right? And this right here, all this stuff, it was very important for me to learn, because I am a natural introvert. So, like, my conversation can run short sometimes if I'm not constantly thinking about it. So I always had to constantly do that. And so learning these skills and learning some of these 6 things were very important in my journey. And that's why I want to share them with you. And hey, maybe you probably want to go ahead and get that book. It's a classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Again, that was published in 1936. So, but we're still talking about it today. Seminars are happening all over the world and different things of that nature, because, listen, if we're in the world of business and entrepreneurship, and even outside of that, we're trying to have a successful family. Listen, if you're going to live free, you want to be happy. And in order to be happy, you gotta learn how to get along with humans in this world, right? And so these are some critical things, some key things that you really want to master and get good at. And I hope you guys got some value from this. I hope you learned a lot. But it's going to really help you to develop yourself into a stellar type of individual. So appreciate you all. Thanks for tuning in. God bless, and we'll see you all over the top. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you guys for listening. Definitely feel free to take a screenshot of this episode, tag me in it on Instagram or Facebook or wherever you find me on social media. I would love to give you a shout out. Hey, you might even get a prize. Who knows? But excited that you had a chance to take a listen. I hope you got a lot of value. And definitely feel free to give us 5 stars as well as a review. Show us some love, and we appreciate you. God bless you all, and see you all over the top.